I was born in London in the year 1738, the first Hanoverian king to be truly British. My father, Frederick, Prince of Wales, died when I was only 12, and from that day I was raised to understand duty, restraint, and the weight of the crown that would one day be mine. My mother, Princess Augusta, was strict but loving, and she often reminded me that I must be a good king, not merely a great one. When my grandfather, George II, died in 1760, I ascended the throne at 22 years old. I was young, eager, and full of purpose. I wished to serve my people with honesty and fairness, and to rule not as a foreign prince, but as an Englishman born and bred. My first speech to Parliament began, "Born and educated in this country, I glory in the name of Britain." Those words defined my reign. In my early years as king, Britain stood strong and proud. We had triumphed in the 7 Years' War, gaining vast territories in North America and India. Yet victory brought burdens. The war had cost dearly, and the nation was in heavy debt. My ministers sought to raise taxes, including in the American colonies. What seemed to them a fair contribution soon turned to anger overseas. The Americans declared that they would not be taxed without representation in Parliament, and so began a quarrel that would end in separation. I had no wish for bloodshed. I believed the colonies should remain loyal, and I supported efforts to restore order, but pride and misunderstanding on both sides hardened hearts. In 1776, the Americans declared independence, and Britain went to war. I followed the news with growing sorrow as defeat drew near. In 1783, we were forced to recognize the United States. It was the greatest blow of my reign, and I carried its weight for the rest of my life. Yet the loss of America did not destroy my spirit. I turned my attention to Britain itself, working with Parliament to strengthen trade, industry, and the Navy. The Industrial Revolution had begun, filling the air with smoke and the streets with machines. I admired invention and often met with scientists, engineers, and farmers. They called me Farmer George, sometimes in jest, but I took pride in the name. I loved the countryside, the rhythm of work, and the simple honesty of English soil. I had married Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz in 1761, and together we built a family of 15 children. Ours was a stable, affectionate home, and though court life was formal, I cherished the laughter of my children. My faith was strong, my habits steady, and I tried to live as an example of decency and duty. But the later years of my reign brought both triumph and tragedy. Britain grew richer and more powerful, yet Europe was thrown into turmoil by the French Revolution and the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte. Our armies fought bravely, and we stood firm against tyranny. But while the empire held steady, I began to falter. My health declined, my mind, once sharp, began to cloud. There were times when I could not think clearly or remember where I was. At first, the doctors called it madness. Today, they would call it illness. I endured it with patience and prayer, but the burden grew heavier with every passing year. By 1811 I could no longer rule, and my eldest son, the Prince of Wales, was made Prince Regent to govern in my stead. I spent my final years at Windsor Castle, blind, frail, and often lost in silence. Yet even in confusion, I clung to faith. My people were kind. They still called me our good King George. I had done my best to serve them, sometimes wrongly, sometimes wisely, but always with heart.